Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't quite know how to start this jam-packed daily market update off. We have a major topic to be discussing with you guys, and it really reaffirms why it's our opinion that there's never been a better time to be an investor in markets. In fact, there's never been more of an important time to be in markets, because what we are witnessing is the evolution of money, the evolution of the financial system. And actually yesterday, Jerome Powell confirmed all this by mentioning Bretton Woods, rather interestingly, in a speech that he delivered. And we're going to start the video off there, and we're going to look at why this is significant and why this relates to us as investors, and the divine nature of the cryptocurrency being given to us when the white paper was released in 2008 on Halloween. Kind of ironic, quite a significant date for some. And then, of course, the first block was published in 2009, but really, the white paper was released post the the 2008 financial crisis. And actually, I'll chuck on screen very quickly what was included in one of the transactions. And really what it was doing was highlighting the fragile and dying nature of the financial system, which Jerome Powell very much, in a roundabout way, reiterated yesterday in regards to where we are, relating it to Bretton Woods and what took place back in the 1940s. When we kind of moved on to a dollar/gold standard. You know, the dollar was essentially, we moved off a kind of physical gold standard onto a dollar gold standard, where your dollars represented gold and was backed by it. And then we moved on to, of course, with Bretton Woods to essentially a fiat standard. And now I wonder what we're going to be moving on to. We are going to be discussing some of those big topics in this video. So I think the best thing for me to do, we're going to cover some general news also. You know, Eurozone inflation came out massively below expectations. We had PMIs in the US come out. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of Hbar news, because Hbar has just had a 21 shares ETP essentially enabled. We're going to look at that. Duncan sort of teased that before the announcement. Hopefully we can get him on the show. And we'll do some TA as normal. But we've got a big topic to address, and it really reaffirms why it is we've said there's never been a better time to be an investor. Something monumental is happening, and you're either going to be on the right or wrong side of this. The right side, I believe, is through having assets that are only going to continue to go up against a dying system that actually is going to morph with the cryptocurrency space to enable almost like another Bretton Woods moment in regards to the kind of evolution of money and its infrastructure, if you will, or backing, whatever it may be. So let's dive into what Jerome Powell had to say yesterday.
From World War II as a global economic superpower, the Bretton Woods Agreement placed the U.S. and the Fed in a central position in the global economy. Our mission then, as it is now, was to serve the American people. But it was clear at that moment that the Fed needed to have better knowledge of global developments to achieve our dual mandate goals. A 1948 memo proposing to create the division stated, quoting, "Problems of international economics and finance have become increasingly large, complex, and significant in recent years, and our foreign economic relations will undoubtedly continue to give rise to issues of the first magnitude." That rare economic forecast that has turned out to be spot on. 75 years later, it remains critical that the Fed understand the policies and practices of other governments and central banks and their implications for the U.S. economy and for financial markets. Exchange rate policy, of course, is now firmly in the hands of the U.S. Treasury. However, the end of the Bretton Woods era in the 1970s fundamentally changed the conduct of monetary policy, as policymakers had to understand the effects of potentially more volatile movements of the U.S. dollar on American families and businesses. Understanding global trade and capital movements has only grown in importance since 1950, as we saw during the pandemic.
Telling you right now, that is Jerome Powell signaling, just like what we saw in Bretton Woods, another major monetary shift. This is why you need to be an investor. You don't know what the world looks like on the other side of that. He speaks about volatility in the dollar. The dollar has been in an uptrend and the euro vice versa in a downtrend since 2008. It's in a channel that it may want to break down out of. That could be for a different video. But really, where the sort of financial system is, which is a sort of faith-based one, it's a debt-based system, is it's at a point of kind of velocity where debt is expanding at a rapid rate. The interest rate payments, and this was the ironic nature of Jamie Dimon saying, instead of investing in Bitcoin, we need to invest in kind of the military. Well, the United States spends more on just interest rate payments, which Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, I should say JP Morgan really, has had a hand in increasing government debt. They spend more on interest rates than they do the military right now. And that's only going to continue to proliferate. It doesn't matter what Doge does, you're going to see the continued proliferation of the dollar. And it's at that velocity stage where it's going to likely incur or introduce volatility. And we need crypto as investors, but probably the US government and the current monetary system needs it more so. And with that is a major opportunity. You know, guys, I know the sentiment is pretty shit in the cryptocurrency space, but it doesn't need to be. It's all about perspective, and it's all about understanding the bigger picture that we just get continued evidence for on a day-to-day basis. It's interesting that Jerome Powell spoke about that in his speech and related Bretton Woods to today. And look at what we've had the likes of Jamie Dimon saying. We're going to go ahead and replay that. And then we'll look at why Larry Fink put forward Bitcoin as a safe haven from governments and any one currency. And remember the divine-esque nature that this technology was given to us. You know, I say divine-esque, almost trolling it. It's not divine, it was planned. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And now's time to pay attention. This technology, and they're going to shake the little guys out as much as they possibly can, is only going one way. It's going to engulf the world, and the cryptocurrency projects that enable that are going to be worth a hell of a lot of money, in my opinion, whatever money is on the other side of all this. Let's go ahead and recap on what Jamie Dimon had to say.
Are going to see a crack in the bond market, okay? It is going to happen. And I tell this to my regulators, some of who are in this room, I'm telling you it's going to happen, and you're going to panic. I'm not going to panic. We'll be fine. We'll probably make more money, and then some of my friends will tell me that we like crises because it's good for J.P. Morgan Chase. Not really. Debt, which you just heard a bunch of folks talk about eloquently, it's large, and it's not just us. We added $10 trillion in 5 years. We have, you had Reagan up there talking about deficits. The debt to GDP was 35%, and the deficit was 3.5%. Today, it's 100% debt to GDP net, and a deficit of almost 7%, highest peacetime ever. And when the CBO does their numbers, which I don't really trust, by the way, they should do the stress test. Like, what happens if we go into a recession? That 7% will be 10%. And so we have problems, and we got to deal with them. And then the biggest one, underlying both that, is the enemy within. I'm not as worried about China. China is a potential adversary. They're doing a lot of things well. They have a lot of problems. What I really worry about is us. Can we get our own act together, our own values, our own capability, our own management? What you heard today on stage was the amount of mismanagement is extraordinary. By state, by city, for pensions, and that stuff is going to kill us. And, I always get asked this question, are we going to be the reserve currency? And no. If we are not the preeminent military and the preeminent economy in 40 years, we will not be the reserve currency. That's a fact. Just read history. Now, I think we will be. Warren Buffett here would tell you we're enormously resilient. I agree with that. I think this time is different. This time we have to get our act together, and we have to do it very quickly.
And I think those clips go hand in hand, the ones of Jerome Powell and what Jamie Dimon's saying. And what crypto is here to do, beyond Bitcoin, which plays a role of a store of value within all this, not a peer-to-peer currency like it was intended to be. In fact, that narrative was hijacked. Do go and read Roger Ver's book. It's an amazing book. But why we're spending time on this is what you were looking at is the creation of the Internet of Value, a global one world system. And the ramifications of all that, you need to be on the right side of history, guys. And that's why this channel exists. It's very, very important, I believe, to be an investor. There's going to be good times and bad times. I was going to play a clip of Larry Fink really talking about Bitcoin more broadly. But we're at a kind of proliferation velocity state for the dollar. You look at the debt out there, it's 36.2 trillion. You look at the money supply, it's 21.8 trillion. This is M2. This isn't even M1, which they took off. This is only going to continue. And Jerome Powell talking about volatility, talking about really the financial system and linking it to Bretton Woods, suggesting it's undergoing a change or changes. It's like an Ozzy Osbourne and Kelly Osbourne song, really, isn't it? And this stuff's very important, and crypto fits into this overall plan. In my very humble opinion, just today, Bank of America warns of US dollar decline. Bank of America expects the US dollar to weaken this summer due to rising debt and trade tensions. What's a lifeboat for that? You've got this could fuel gains in assets like Bitcoin and gold, which often thrive when dollar declines. Yeah, to a degree. Remember, we've got continuation for Bitcoin. We've been so right on Bitcoin. Altcoins, we will eventually be right. And we'll do a video later on today on altcoins more broadly and the positioning of them technically. Gold, we've also been very right on from a technical point of view. If I go to my watch list, go all the way down and find gold. There's so many things that we watch across the board because we have to. One of the things that makes this channel special is we're kind of a 360 analyzer. We had a lot of work on this. We had a big macro pattern, and that's still going to take you to the 3,556. And I'm very proud that, I've got a lot of younger people in my family, and they've all started to invest and done very well on the back end of it. It doesn't have to necessarily be in crypto, but this is continuation. Bitcoin's going to see that continuation. I just truly believe we've got this amazing time ahead of us for the cryptocurrency space, and it all happens to do with, or all has everything to do with things in larger markets taking place. And I think there was a clear path set out for this technology, and I think that just becomes more and more evident on a day-to-day basis. Let's talk about a little bit of crypto news. Duncan Moore teasing us when Hbar. Hopefully we'll get them on the show to talk about this and the decision to enable this. Very interesting. When Hbar what? Well, 21 shares. The enterprise-grade DLT just entered the ETP market. We're proud to launch the 21 shares Hedera ETP, HDRA, giving investors exposure to Hedera's energy-efficient, high-speed network backed by global giants like Google and IBM. Very happy to see this come to market as the leading crypto ETP provider. It's important to make the best technology available to our broad and growing client base. A little bit of macro news. Euro inflation came out today at 1.9%. I think the ECB, I don't know if they've got a rate decision today being Tuesday or tomorrow. They're likely going to lower basis points by 25 basis points. Euro inflation obviously calling out, and you had US manufacturing, which is rising, which could be an interesting barometer for economic conditions. We yet to really see an economic cycle play out. But yeah, hang in there, guys. There's never been a better time to be an investor in markets, and it's due to everything happening with the monetary system, which Bitcoin was initially given to us to kind of combat. That narrative was hijacked, but the more broader ramifications of this technology, it's not going to, I think, what we're looking at is the enabling of literally a one world global system. And DLTs are at the heart of it. Just like we have a one world internet where we kind of connect everyone together. And of course, there are jurisdictions like China that doesn't allow, they've kind of got their own internet for very obvious reasons. But we're looking at the same thing happening with value, and DLTs in this changing monetary world are going to enable all that. And that's a huge opportunity. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you all. As always, stick to the plan. Crypto's going up. It will do eventually. We've been right on it so far. It is progressing, albeit slower than people perhaps want or expect. But you've got to be in it to win it. Crypto's not for everybody. Like I say, I always say this. If you don't want to be here, don't. That's just the fact. There's no point in the definition of an idiot. I think this is Einstein's definition. Is somebody that does the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, but getting the same undesired one. Don't do it. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.